Hey guys, welcome to G Whiskey. I'm Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below, and with that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today we're looking at the Laddie 8-year-old. Stick around. Okay, so we're looking at the Laddie 8 today, and I'll also be comparing it to the Classic Laddie, which was my Whiskey of the Year last year for 2022, and I'm going to tell you which one I think is more deserving of your hard-earned dollars. Because the thing about the 8-year-old is that it is more expensive than the Classic Laddie, and of course 8 years is not an old age statement, but Classic Laddie is no age stated, so presumably the 8 years old is older than the Classic Laddie, and I've had a lot of you ask me, is it worth the bump in price to go for the 8-year-old? And as many of you guys know, Classic Laddie is my baby. I know it's a divisive whiskey. A lot of you don't get on with it. I love it. I think it's complex, rich, full-flavored, engaging, dynamic. I could go on, but I script these reviews, and that's already, what, 6 adjectives to remember? Actually, I went back and counted. It's 5. Doesn't matter. Point is, I like it a lot, and I think it's kind of a misunderstood whiskey. It can be a very sharp and biting whiskey at times, which certainly is going to turn a lot of people off. I like it because I think it's well done. I don't always want sharp and biting whiskeys, but when those elements are used properly, it can make the whiskey feel more like zesty and vibrant and more adjectives. Another thing I love about the Classic Laddie is that it's affordable. It's budget friendly. At least it is in my market. I've heard from some of you out there that it's kind of expensive in your market, which is unfortunate. But yeah, for me, quite affordable, which is why I come back to it quite often. I couldn't tell you how many bottles I've had of it, but quite a few. As for the 8-year-old, I've only spent time with this one over the last few months. This is actually the first bottle I've ever owned. This one is a travel retail exclusive. We don't know too much about cask information. We know that it's American and European oak casks. I would imagine it's light in color. I would imagine it's mostly bourbon matured with a slight sherry touch. But oddly enough, they don't list this one on their website, and they don't give us too many details about it on the bottle or on the box. As I said, this one is more expensive than the Classic Laddie. It's not wildly more expensive, but it's a chunk more. And yeah, our big question of the day is it worth that extra money to go for this one, or are you better off sticking with the Classic Laddie? Now, this is going to be a fun one for me. You guys know how much of a Bruichladdich fan I am, so let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into our review. And in the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So, of course, this is a Bruichladdich. We're going to have good specs here. This one comes in at 50%, non-chill filtered, natural color. So for presentation, I know the Laddie design is divisive. It's got a look for sure. In fact, it's got a new look, which is great if you like to drink while biking, which is not recommended. Do not drink and bicycle. Tricycle, maybe. It's safer. And you're going to look cooler, but no, still not recommended. But yeah, redesign aside, this one has the traditional Bruichladdich shape, but the difference being that this one is actually a transparent bottle, which is more practical because we can actually make out the level of the liquid inside, which is always kind of frustrating when you have bottles like the Classic Laddie, where you don't know how much of the bottle you have left. But it's less eye-catching, so I actually think I prefer the Classic Laddie design, even though it's far less practical. For this, I'll give it 3 out of 5 for presentation. This does say non-chill filtered and natural color, but beyond that, there's nothing on the tin. There's nothing on the bottle about like the types of casks, tasting notes. So we do have all the essential information. That's all there and fair play, but not much beyond that. And as I said earlier, this bottle is not listed on their website, maybe because it's travel retail exclusive. I'm not sure why, but it would be nice to have that listing and have a little bit more detail about the production, but it is what it is. And again, the basics are there. It's got everything we need. The bottle looks fine. I did not add water to this. On the nose, right away, we recognize it as a Bruichladdich. We get lots of barley in here, and the barley is kind of like fusty. It's kind of musty. There's even a very gentle sourness to it, but that's a good thing. We do get a little bit of bite in here, but it's more rounded. It's a little bit softer than what you'd expect from a Classic Laddie. I get notes like yeast, florals, lemon, orange blossom, pears, general fermented fruits. There's some shortbread in here and some very natural vanilla. It's a nice nose. On the palate and finish, this is a mouth-coating whiskey. It's malty, it's oily. I get barley first and foremost, but I also get some herbal elements in here as well as a touch of rose water. We also get plenty of florals in here. There's white pepper, there's lemon rind, there's some oak, there's a very nice vanilla note in here. Our finish is medium, lingering on some fermented fruits. All right, so this is a very barley-driven whiskey, which I appreciate. It's definitely quite different from the classic Laddie, which I would say has a little bit more of that sharpness and that bite. And it's also usually got a little bit more wine influence, whereas this one, I'm getting more barley and more oakiness in general. Now, this still does have some of that bite that you'd expect from a Laddie release, and to be honest, I'd be disappointed if I didn't get that from a Laddie. It's still in here. I think it's more toned down and it's more rounded off than what you get from the classic Laddie, but it's there. Now, I do think the classic Laddie does it better. Not only that, I think the classic Laddie is a little bit more interesting because we usually have some wine casks in the mix in the classic Laddie. Now, I do think we've got a touch of sherry in the Laddie 8, but it's still very barley forward and distillate forward. And that's true also of most classic Laddies, but I think that wine touch just adds an interesting element to the whiskey. And usually on paper, if you tell me something's more distillate driven, more barley driven, that would be the one that I would prefer. But in execution, in reality, I do seem to get more from the classic Laddie. And the thing about the classic Laddie though is that they're not going for consistency. If you check their website, they'll tell you that they play around with casks and they play around with the recipe quite a bit. I think they have a general idea of what they want, but they're also willing to be quite flexible there, and they leave a lot of room for, batch variation, and I like that they embrace that. So if you've had the classic before and you kind of wrote it off, I would say try it again. Maybe don't buy it again. Of course, if you have a bad experience with the bottle, don't buy it again, but maybe you can try it again at a bar or at a friend's place. If it comes up, give it a go, because I've had plenty of bottles, as I said earlier, and for the most part, they've all been quite different. And that does create a bit of an issue when you want to compare one of these whiskeys to the other, because again, they're not going for consistency. So I'll put it this way. The Laddie 8 is better than the weaker batches of the classic Laddie, but it's not as good as, I would say, the majority of batches of the classic Laddie. And on the whole, I do think the classic Laddie is the better buy. But as I said, that's very much because the classic Laddie suits my style. And I think there will be a lot of you who try the 8 and end up preferring it. If you're looking for more oak, if you're looking for a more rounded profile, if you like a very forward barley note, then I think this one will be more to your liking than the classic Laddie. So it really depends on what you're looking for. Still, I do love this stuff, and for score, I'm going to land on 86. Keep in mind, I do like this line more than most, and I tend to score them quite generously. For example, the best batches of classic Laddie, I would go as high as something like 89, 90. But then, as I said, it's a batchy whiskey, and some of the lesser batches, I'd probably land somewhere around 85. This one being 86, it's kind of in the middle. So if you came here for an answer as to which one is better, the Laddie 8 or the classic Laddie, it depends. It's a very frustrating non-answer. So you're welcome. Hope that helps. Anyway, I think both of these are excellent whiskeys, and I think there will be a good chunk of you that do prefer the 8. Broadly speaking, I don't, but I still think it's fantastic stuff, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of this bottle, and I'm going to recommend the whiskey to you guys. Now let's talk about value. So do I think this is worth more money than the classic Laddie? Officially, no, I don't. But I also think it does something quite different than the classic Laddie. And the classic Laddie for me has always been such a great deal that it's a bottle I'll come back to quite often. This is not a bottle I'll come back to often. It's not something I'd buy back to back, and I definitely put some space between bottles. But yes, I would buy it again. For reference, here at Taiwan at the airport, the Laddie 8 costs about 56 US, so about 45 pounds. And here's the thing about the classic Laddie. We're very, very lucky here in Taiwan. The classic Laddie is cheap. It sells for about 37 US, or roughly 30 pounds here, which explains why I come back to it so often. Still, both excellent whiskeys, both worth the money. I'm happy to have both, but I'm certainly going to land on the classic Laddie more often just based on my prices and my preferences. And that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, I do have the Patreon. Otherwise, you can like, comment, and subscribe. That is always appreciated. And I do want to hear your thoughts. Have you tried the Laddie 8? What were your thoughts? How would you compare it to the classic Laddie? What are your thoughts on the classic Laddie? You can put those all down below. Also, below in the comments, you can tell me what whiskey you want to see me review next, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.